Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Born Primitive Outdoor Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Snyder, and today I'm actually going to talk about bear hunting. I'm actually heading out tomorrow to go bear hunting, so I figured this was a good time. I probably should have done this earlier. I've had pretty good success over the years killing bears from everything from spot and stalk to baiting to dogs, and have a decent idea. I think anyway, I like to pretend that I know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go over, some of the most asked questions and some answers I have for those, as well as like different tactics and things like that. So, in my case right now, I'm doing a little bit of both. I have a bait set up, and then I have a pretty good spot, in the high country. So what I'm probably going to do tomorrow is check the bait. If there's something on it, I really like to shoot one with the bow, try to stalk in and get a shot. I'll sit on that bait for a while. I've got tree stands. And then the next day backpack into the high country, if needed, and do a little spot and stalk in the high country. But I have a pretty tight window before I head out on my next business trip. So I've got to try to get it done quick. I'm running out of time. Anyway, so number one, probably I'd say the most asked question is broadheads, mechanical or fixed. And really it's weird when you talk to different outfitters, the vast difference in opinion about broadheads. Some outfitters love them, some don't. So for me, I like a bigger hole for broadheads anyway. So, I like mechanicals because of the bigger hole or a large fixed blade. It's not very hard to poke a hole in a bear, a black bear specifically. Penetration is not going to be an issue. The problem is they don't bleed well. And when I say they don't bleed well, the blood gets hung up in their fur. And so, they generally are not leaving a great blood trail. So, bigger hole, the better. So I would just say shoot the largest fixed blade or mechanical broadhead you can. Right now, I just put on last night the Evolution Outdoors Whitetail Fury to have an even bigger hole, just in case. So, and then, the rifle caliber, I get asked that question a lot. I've shot bears with from 6.5 PRC, 300 PRC, 30-06. I mean, my buddy shoots them with basically, he's shot them with, 5.56. So I, just hit them where they need to be hit. But, anytime, when in doubt, shoot a 30 caliber. But honestly, I'd shoot anything in the world with that 6.5 PRC within reason. So I'm probably not the best guy to ask for guns. Now, where to aim? You'll hear guys say center of center. A lot of people say that because they're a black target. So just saying center height and center mass, left and right, center windage elevation. I basically go center of center and then sneak towards the front shoulder a little bit. The biggest issue, especially when guiding, you got a big black blob, get a little confused, chuck one into the shoulder. So center of body, go a little forward towards the head, you'll be good to go. So, as far as like arrows and stuff like that, kind of same thing as anything else, shoot as much weight as you can, you're comfortable with, shoot a relatively decently weighted arrow, a little lighter is not going to hurt. The bears aren't that hard to put a hole through. So, next up, tactics. So when bears come out of the den, they are pretty much like punch drunk, kind of rum-dum, goofy. You've been sleeping a long time. Generally, when you shoot one that's just out of the den, you can check the pads and the claws. You'll know pretty quickly from that. But they need to find very nutrient-rich grass because they need to get their intestines and stomach working again. And so when they first come out of the den, they're going to be, wherever they can find grass. Now, that could be on an old logging road, where it's got a lot of grass, a deactivated road growing up on the sides. That could be a big field, in the high country. That could be, a slope on an elevation with a bunch of grass. And so when you're looking at the spot and stock stuff, it's not so cut and dry because you could, literally walk down a deactivated logging road in an area with, a high concentration of bears, and, potentially run into one depending upon of the time of the year. So when they first pop out, they're looking for nutrient-rich grass, of the den. And then, that kind of changes, obviously, trying to kill a bear in the high country once they're not like on a specific grassy area. they're moving, they're rolling around boulders, they're looking for grubs and, picket or whatever, ground prairie dogs, whatever the fuck you want to call them up high. They're looking for anything. And then you get into like the berries. When the huckleberries start growing, then they're eating those. And so like when they first pop out of the den, where you're like low ground, farm country, or up high, they're looking for grass. And so that's the best way to find them, is the most nutrient rich grass. Generally, if you find really good looking nutrient rich grass, the bigger bear is going to be on that first, and he's not going to relinquish it. So sit behind optics all day, look at big grassy patches, hope for the best. Like that's high country, early season high country black bear hunting is just sitting behind glass in areas with grass, hoping to find a bear. In certain places, get into June, depending upon how the season lasts in that earlier season, or even into the later season, fall season. When you're looking for berries, you're literally just looking for bears and berry patches, huckleberries. So you're really hunting more for berries than you are bears. And on that, it depends. If it's a burn, you're going to find a lot more berries in a burn, generally, depending upon where you're at in the world. So that's a spot, look in a burn where there's lots of berries growing there. And then obviously there's acorns and a bunch of other shit I've never done. I mean, there's tons of different ways to hunt a bear, but a lot of time behind glass, and then when you look at baiting, with baiting, the thing you want is consistency. You don't want the bait to run out, and you want to dump it consistently. And, you want, obviously, game cameras and all that helps. But even if you never put a game camera up and you bait it consistently, you're going to be in good shape, sitting on it morning and night. They do come in the morning. Sometimes they come on, sometimes they are nocturnal. But yeah, just sit it just like anything, a whitetail stand, and you could sit it all day. But bears smell extremely good. Like they can smell very well. Like some people say 7-8 miles away. Polar bears can smell seals under the ice. So they have an amazing sense of smell. I don't think they can, they don't seem to see overly well. There's some debate about that, but you can get away with quite a bit with their vision. But their nose, you're not going to get away with. So if you're going to sit a spot, make sure, the wind's not blowing the direction where they're probably coming from. And when you get older bears that haven't been hunted, they're a lot easier to kill when they haven't been hunted. Meaning if you're hunting a bait, they'll come right in. Once they've been hunted, really smart bears, they just circle the bait. They'll figure it out. They'll know something's up. And so, you want to be careful with that. Some people say old mature bears just can't be killed because they'll circle that bait until dark, and then they'll come in, nocturnally at night. Now, as far as baiting goes, it depends. Like in the area I'm at, you can only like dump, basically we're dumping like scrap from cattle. You can't do in grizzly areas, donuts and dog food and shit. So like Cameron Haynes, he talks about it quite a bit in his first book. Tons of info out there, but you can do dog food, marshmallows, throw some syrup, molasses in there, popcorn, whatever you can in areas like that. The one thing, if you're throwing like canola oil in there and stuff like that, they'll get the shit, so they don't want to come off the bait very far because they're hungry. Everybody's got little tricks of the trade to that, but I would say the number one thing is consistency. Bait it the same time, all the time, every time. That's going to be huge. Now, when you're, going into the fall season, and I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but like the best way to kill a bear in the fall is kill an elk and then sit on a carcass where that's legal. Most places, I think all places that's legal to do that, you just can't move the carcass to help you kill the bear. So it's got to kind of be, it is, where it lies, and you want to set up on that. You're not supposed to move it around. But with bears, like, again, depending upon the area, there's certain places you could put a carcass out, and they're not going to come to it very much. They're going to be on berries, or they're going to be on something else, and they may come in eventually. But other times, you could have 6 bears fighting over one elk carcass, like running around. So usually it's going to take a couple days, on that elk carcass. And again, biggest thing with that is once they're on it, it's going to go quick. You're going to have birds hitting it. You're going to have coyotes and foxes hitting it. You're going to have, the bears hitting it. So you don't want too big of a gap in there because, it's going to be gone eventually. And they'll generally just sleep on that carcass. They're not going to get very far from it. A lot of times they'll do the same thing for a bait at times. They'll just sleep on it. So, the other, like, judging a bear, the size, Yeah, it's just time, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time seeing a lot of different bears. The easiest thing, if the ears look big, it's a small bear. Ears look tiny, it's a big bear. If it's got a big butt crack on its forehead, it's an old bear. As far as telling like male from female, the easiest way that I have described to people, to me, is the front wrists. The wrist is the easiest way to tell. If the wrist is about the same size as the forearm, it's a boar. If the wrist is small and swedges down, it's a sow. So that's one way to look at it. Now, at a distance, you can talk yourself into about anything, and you'll see people shoot, honestly, 75 to 100-pound bears. It happens. They look big. I mean, we're talking like the size of a dog. 1,600 yards away, 600 yards away. If you haven't looked at a ton of them, it's hard to tell. But if the ears are big, don't shoot it. And if they're straight up more than out, don't shoot it. Meaning if there's not a big gap in there. But you get a big butt crack, tiny little ears, that bear's old, that bear's big. And again, the size thing, it's just seeing a lot of bears. There's nothing, unless you have a barrel to bounce it off or base it off of. It's just a matter of looking at a lot of bears over time. And, that's just practice. So some of the other questions I've gotten on that's, it's a good hunt to, a lot of people want to go on as their first hunt. I really don't think that that's a good idea. If you're going to spend money on going on your first Western hunt, I wouldn't say bear is your best option. You might get one, and obviously if you're going to bait, that's a different story. You probably got a better chance of getting one shooting off a bait. But it wouldn't be my cup of tea. Now, as far as eating a bear, there's a lot of argument and, back and forth on eating a bear. Well, I don't have any issue eating bear. They're great for, if you like, on my end, right? If like chili, they're fatty, so they're great chili. They make great burger. They can make great breakfast sausage. But when you're hunting a bear, or you're going to eat a bear, if you're hunting them in the high country, it's going to taste great. If they're eating berries, it's going to be good. If you're eating them off a dump bear or off a creek or river where they're eating fish all the time, they're not going to taste that good. That's just kind of life. I mean, I've seen some nasty shit come out of bears, like tapeworms hanging out of their butt and everything else. And so, be careful when you're handling them. They're pretty disease ridden. When I say that, meaning their claws, they're digging around in maggots and shit, carcasses. So, something to think about as far as that goes. But I don't have any problem eating a spring bear, a high country bear. You start getting into the dump bears, ones that are hitting dumps, getting into garbage a lot. Those could be more of a problem as far as eating them goes. So rewinding though, and this isn't going to be a super long podcast. Springtime spot and stalk, really grassy areas, nutrient rich grass. If you find them in the high country early on one spot, you're probably going to see multiple bears hitting that spot, or at least more than one in that grassy area. Once they get off that grass, their stomach's flowing. They're moving around a lot. And so trying to get in front of them can be a problem with a bow. So you really want to catch them earlier than you do later in that spring, early season if you're going to be bow hunting them. When you're looking at bait, consistency is the key. You want to do that. If you're looking at deactivated logging roads, you're looking for sign on the ground where they've been in and out. You're looking for grass. And if you get a long straight stretch, sit on that all day long. They'll come out and eat, but bears generally are more of a morning, but specifically an evening bear. Midday bears are a little bit more difficult. Shooting midday is generally not optimal, right? So it's more of an evening thing, and it can be, again, a morning thing, but evening, and that's for anything, bait, spot and stalk, or whatever. A lot of outfitters won't even hunt them in the morning, just hunt them at night, especially up in Canada. So something to think about. And then when you get, it's berries after that, huckleberries, they love them. They eat the crap out of them. But, blueberries, whatever you want to call them in the high country. And then really about the last thing they eat in the Rocky Mountains is like white ash. They'll eat on that. That's one of the last things out when the cold weather hits. So, the white ash, look it up. You can see it online. And then as far as tracks go, really, and you can Google all this, the width of the front pad is really what you want to go off of to figure if it's a mature bear or not. And when I say that, there's diagrams for that explain it. Like if it's a 5.5 or 6 inch pad and everything else, it'll go in like the size and maturity of the bear. generalities, but you can learn that, pretty quickly as far as, but if it's just a big ass bear, it's got a big ass pad on it. You don't need a tape measure. And then broadheads, bigger hole, the better. Center of center, go a little bit more towards the shoulder. You don't really need a heavy arrow for a black bear. They're pretty easy to poke a hole through. Eating them, just same thing. Get them cooled off. Meat care, same as any other animal. And yeah, bear tastes great. I had some the other night. I had it made into Italian sausage, but it's really better in like chili and sausage than it is like eating a steak. I would not eat a grizzly though. Stay away from those, or a brown bear. And then the tree stand stuff and everything else, like, set it up just like you would a whitetail. Make sure that the tree's close enough as far as the shot, applicable for the wind that's coming in. Pretty basic stuff. Backpack bear hunting, stuff like that. It's just like any other animal. Find grass, find good spots, find berries, and just glass your ass off until you see a bear, and try to, hopefully they'll come back into the same spot, and hopefully they're not moving. I mean, you'll see a late spring bear will almost be impossible to catch up with when it's on the mountainside, rolling rocks and digging around and moving on, rolling rocks. And it's really hard to get ahead of them once they're in the high country and they get that stomach moving like they should. I don't think there's not really a whole lot of other stuff I wanted to cover. I'm going to do a video if I get a bear on how to cape one out. Cliff Gray has a really good video. That's Cliff 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 Gray GREY. Cliff has a great video on how to cape a bear. Eichler's got some. There's a lot of videos out there on how to cape one. It's pretty hard for me to do it over the mic without diagrams, but you kind of split the paw, come in by the elbow, cut up to the armpit. But again, Cliff and others have really good videos on that. So yeah, I think I'm only, 17 minutes I've been talking. So not a super long podcast. Just wanted to hop on here, get something out for Thursday before I go bear hunting tomorrow. And then if you have questions on anything, feel free to ask, but just get out there, get behind the glass, and be consistent if you're baiting, when you dump it. So I appreciate all the kind messages I've been getting. A lot of good stuff upcoming and going on with More Primitive. That's been great. So thank you all for tuning in. The First Academy course went extremely well. We had a full class, great group of people. That was amazing. We'll be announcing pretty soon the next Academy course, so I'm excited about that. And wish me luck. Hopefully I get a bear. Hopefully I get it with a bow. And I'll let everybody know how that goes on the next podcast.